Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Broadcasting live on New Year's Eve, ladies and gentlemen. It all starts now. Secret hearings supposedly released. Do you trust them? I don't. How about feds pause all funding? Minnesota, we'll talk about that. FBI targets Minnesota fraud. China launches massive live fire drills. We're going to talk about the top 10 stories from a bunch of different points of view over the year 2025, a look back, if you will. And best of all, my co-host and guest, Mr. James Edwards, with me, well-known author. The book is Racism, Schmacism, not to mention his incredible radio talk show that focuses on hypocrisy in 21st century American politics. ThePoliticalCesspool.org, his award-winning broadcast available every Saturday night live. And you can listen on demand anytime you like at ThePoliticalCesspool.org. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you and your family, and welcome, James.
Sam, great to be back with you, but especially here on yet another holiday, another inflection point, New Year's Eve 2025, last day of the year, last broadcast of Liberty Roundtable for the year. And I got to just say very quickly, because I know you got a lot of stories to get into today, as you always do, but every time the dawn of a new year approaches, I think of Sam Bushman. Sam is a man who likes to hit the ground. Listen to me, folks. Sam is a man who likes to hit the ground running in January of every year. Really just sets the tone for the year. And I'll give you just two examples. All right, just off the top of my head. I was thinking about this before we connected today. So you go back to this very week, or the first week of January in 2015. Here's Sam on the front page of newspapers around the country. He's there with the folks who eventually went into the Malheur Wildlife Refuge. Now, Sam advised them against that, and that's another story. But there he was, his face all over the news. And then a year later, the very next year, Sam was there at the very front, probably about 20 feet away from Donald Trump as he was inaugurated president of the United States. I know that because I was there with him. And this year, no different. Fast forward another decade, he's got a huge event next week with Sheriff Mack and General Flynn. And I'm just telling you, Sam is a man who likes to get things going hard and fast. This year's going to be no exception. I can't wait for 2026, Sam.
It's all about news the networks refuse to use, which will attack some incredible stories coming up as well. But first, I want to cast our minds back to 2025. As you wisely point out, James, there's a lot going on. Right when I got on the show today, my producer, Zach, said, hey, man, what the heck happened overnight? A ton of different things broke overnight and everything else, personally and across the nation. It's kind of crazy. But I got a top 10 stories list from a bunch of different perspectives. ChatGPT helped out with this a little bit. You know, I said, hey, I want the top 10 U.S. stories, the top 10 international stories. Then I got the top 10 stories from broadcasters. And then I got my own personal stories that I want to highlight. Hopefully, James will toss some of his in the mix as well. But I think this is really, really important. Top 10 stories international. Now, this is according to ChatGPT, and I'm not going to really do them one by one, because a lot of their stories, in my opinion, are, I don't know, they overlap. They're a little bit clownish in nature and all that kind of stuff. Global climate extremes. 2025, one of the hottest years on record, they say. Cyclones, floods, wildfires created some of the most costly disasters in the world, displacing millions, causing tens of billions of dollars. I think that's a huge story. I think it's really a series of stories or a point that happened last year or, this year, 2025. But I don't really like how they focus on this. They act like it's all climate change, and they're driving this climate change narrative. And see, I reject that. I believe the reason you have all these fires and all these floods is because you have inept criminal government all on the take. And because these thugs are all on the take, they're not making the moves that would protect our land, protect our people, and so things just go awry. You let a bridge rot, and then one guy drives over it, and the bridge falls down, and you go, oh my gosh, climate change. It got too hot, got too cold, the bridge couldn't stand it, it melted down. You guys got to quit eating meat and quit breathing. No. You got to maintain the bridge, you idiots. I don't mean to be, I'm just saying. So to me, they've got it all wrong. If you've got all these crises, number one, you got to take care of business. If you're government, you got to maintain things. Okay, you got to have water to put out fires, just so you know, Californians. It takes water to put out fires, okay? Secondarily, you've got these, wild horses. We had a broadcast on with this wild horse rancher. They eat down, they mow the land. You can use a lot of those things, but we just wouldn't touch the land. It's like, oh, it's wilderness. It's untouchable. And then we let all this undergrowth happen, and then fires just get a gazillion times hotter than they normally would. We're creating these disasters, government mismanagement of land. Okay, same thing with these floods. Then you get the fire, and then, hey, now we got to have landslides and the floods. And, well, I'm convinced that it isn't just global warming, or it isn't humanoids or the enemy. It's really that we're turning our backs on God. And we're told that he uses, climate, rain. I mean, go think of the flood if you don't believe me, folks. Kind of things to help us be stirred up in remembrance of our God. And no one's bringing up the God factor to this massive, climate change, whatever story. But anyway, they make that seem like it's the biggest top story or series of stories in the country. I think it has been because they report that way, but I think they're missing the main focus or target for solutions. One, turn to God, and two, you got to maintain what you're in charge of, people. It's really simple. You don't take care of your car and eventually your battery goes dead. You don't take care of your car and eventually your brakes go out, okay? I mean, how simple can this be, James?
Well, Sam, as you know, so much of the media is either, number one, if it's politically oriented, narrative driven, or number two, revenue or clickbait driven. And I am totally skeptical of anything I read, up to and including news reports about the weather and natural disasters. And I'll just give you quickly a very quick anecdote. I have a friend who lives in Key West. A few years ago, there was a hurricane, as Key West is wont to have. And, it was a hurricane, right? But he was looking out his window, and it was, it was stormy for sure. But he was watching a news report on television from the town square there on Duval Street, if anybody's ever been down to Key West where the cruise terminals are. And, he said, man, it doesn't look anything like this. He lived 2 blocks away. So he actually went down there in the middle of this hurricane. I mean, you can travel, you can move in a hurricane depending on the degree of severity. And he got down there, and I'll never forget this. And this was probably about 10 years ago. And he said that they literally had wind machines on the reporters. I mean, portable wind machines to make it look more dramatic. Now, that is anecdotal, but I will say this.
Yeah, but that's anecdotal, but it's also criminal, though. You're flat out intentionally, blatantly manipulating and lying. Credibility is at an all-time low.
Well, see, but this is the thing. You got to have that revenue. You got to have those eyeballs. You got to have those sponsors. You got to have those ads, and that's true even on internet platforms now. But I will say this. Okay, so just last year, of course, all of these news reports, because nothing really gets people's attention like disasters, right? And all these news reports about how all of these hurricanes, global warming has caused all of these severe and intense hurricanes. They're more powerful than ever. They're more numerous than ever. And every year it's only going to get worse. And we've heard that for the last several years. And yes, there have been some hurricanes. Probably always have been. I mean, something was sinking those ships during the age of exploration. We just couldn't record it. But this year, Sam, not one hurricane made landfall in the United States. Not one. I don't even know when the last time that happened was. So not one of them, and the ones that were out at sea weren't particularly that strong.
And that makes the point that this idea that global warming is just the cause of everything, it's not true. Ignoring the scientific reality about cyclical solutions in reality based on the Earth. It does things to heal itself. It does things for warming and cooling. Mother Earth can take care of itself very well. Mother Earth is not something to be worshipped, and it's not something to be feared, ladies and gentlemen. And that's really, in my opinion, the takeaway of all the series of stories on this. Turn to God. Manage things well, and you won't have this massive meltdown. These cycles have been seen before. Just because we haven't had the computers to document it like the way we want to, that doesn't mean it's not true. And now when we talk about the computers, I mean, I literally went to a rock concert or a country concert the other day, several months ago now, and they basically said, clear skies, you're good to go. Next thing you know, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I feel a drop of rain. And then I look, and the thing still says clear skies. And then about 5 minutes later, it said, oh, there's going to be rain. Really? So they know after the raindrops fall. And these guys, these clowns, think if they can't tell me the weather the same very hour that I'm in it, that they can predict and document and whatever the future. I mean, they're off their rocks crazy. And really, the real story for 2025, if we're truth-telling under Trump, why aren't everybody exposing this like we are? That's my, question. There you have it. That's story one for them, but we have a different narrative for that story. Ongoing global conflicts and war persist among peace talks. Trump's second term in domestic policy. We'll talk about that coming up, but I'm just convinced that Trump says he was going to get out of wars. Everybody runs on the peace platform. When they get in office, though, especially in their second terms, they go off the rails and they step in it literally for their second terms. They do it every time. Trump seems to be no different. James Edwards, yours truly. Back in seconds, you're watching Liberty Roundtable Live. All right, so we're talking about U.S. airstrikes. Yeah, it's Trump's foreign policy. He said he was going to get out of wars. He was going to back off, take care of home. We're going to focus domestic. However, in 2025, I didn't see a whole lot of domestic stuff, except for Lawfare, left and right. Other than that, not much. Trump gallivanted around the world. The Trump administration authorized U.S. airstrikes abroad, including a Christmas Day airstrike in Nigeria. Not to mention the attack on Venezuela, and we're basically attacking drug boats everywhere and everything else, and tankers, oil tankers taking oil and everything else. And I don't really know how to respond to this because I, on one hand, support what Trump is doing. What I don't support is how he's doing it. You can't skip Congress, people. There's checks and balances. And I know you would say, well, it's an emergency, people. We've got to. No, you don't. No, you don't. The Constitution was designed to handle emergencies. And what you've got to do is just slow down, not send us into oblivion, and not step in it internationally. Every president in their, quote, second term seems to do that. They become a lame duck president. They want to make a name for themselves, and they go psychotic internationally. On one hand, we're backing away from some wars. Good news. On the other hand, we're starting a whole new, quote, group of wars. In fact, we're trying to create a whole new, what do they call this thing? The whatever fleet? Make America Great Again fleet? What do you want to call this thing? The Golden Age, Golden Fleet, whatever. And it's going to be Trump written all over it. I mean, wow, if you want to be a non-wartime peace guy, but you change it to the War Department and then create ships with your name on it, you're not doing too well, James.
A lot to unpack here with regards to Trump and foreign policy and war. And there is nothing at this time of year like year-end reviews of a president's administration, especially this one with it being the first year of Trump's second term. I mean, that is like catnip for we talk radio commentators, ladies and gentlemen. And I just did a really big piece. Sam's aware of it. It was a 4-page spread in the American Free Press, and we identified 14 different contributors to sort of rate Trump. And between these 14, and I'm talking about elected officials, I'm talking about a man of the cloth, Sam's dear good friend, Sheriff Mack, academics, scholars, you name it, they were all there, activists. And I don't think there was one thing good or bad that collective of 14 contributors didn't touch on. And the topic of war was certainly one of them. And, ultimately, Trump hasn't stopped any wars like he promised he would do. Of course, that's easier said than done. And he hasn't really started any new ones either. That's tepid praise for an American president. I mean, he has had some, surgical strikes, and, even that's not very good. But as far as it goes, it could be worse, I guess. But overall, the average grade of Trump's second year, we had 7 people from outside of the United States, Canada, Australia, Europe, 7 in the United States. The average grade of the Americans that they gave Trump was 7.4 out of 10. The internationals gave him 6.8 out of 10. And you say that's pretty high, and I guess it is. But, where I went to school, a 70 was a D. Anything below a 70 was an F. So I guess there's some nuance there for you. But I would just say,
by the way, what did I give him? I graded him too. What did I tell you it was?
Yeah, I think you gave him like a 3. No, I think a little higher than that. But you are a little more hard on him than.
I think I said it was a D though, is what I gave him overall.
Yeah, that's right. That would have been about on par with, and these were very objective, very sober assessments. But I would say this about declaring war: you are so right, and of course, anybody that's has even an elementary knowledge of history knows that the United States hasn't declared war since the Second World War, right? That's a long time. A lot of wars since then.
Problem, right?
Well, but the problem is also, Sam, it's bigger than the problem that is so obvious, is that Congress hasn't declared war. I say the United States. Congress hasn't declared war since the Second World War. Any act of war has to be approved by Congress, except, when you don't do it and just disregard the Constitution, which is what we've been doing since the 40s. And we've had a lot of wars since then, God knows, and a lot of occupations. But here's the problem. You cannot get Congress to do anything. Why? Why do you have a more dysfunctional Congress now than ever before in American history? And this is a very essential problem is we are not one people. You are always going to have gridlock when you have a Tower of Babel. And we have a Congress that is made up of our Tower of Babel. You are not of one faith, not of one language, not of one kind, not of one anything, traditions, cultures, holidays. That the Congress is representative of the American people, which is a Tower of Babel, and that is why you're always going to have gridlock. You're never going to have any cohesion. And I'm not talking about, even back in the day when we were predominantly one people here and of one faith, you had disagreements, obviously. But at the end of the day, you were at least one people. We are not that anymore, and you're only going to see more dysfunction like this, and I don't think it's ever going to go back.
Unfortunately, I pray you're wrong, but predict you're right, and I think that's part of the problem. And I don't criticize Trump for doing what he kind of needs to do so much as. I do criticize Congress because they're the ones that could make what Trump's doing legitimately lawful and appropriate. They're the ones that could, and they've done nothing. My problem with Trump is that he hasn't really focused on Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson single-handedly controls the purse strings. We used to have a Congress do it, but now we've created so many internal rules and manipulations to where, hey, you've got a kingmaker in Mike Johnson, and he controls everything. You've heard a lot of women, Congresswomen, speak out about this. Luna, Green, Boebert, many have criticized Mike Johnson, saying this guy's a clown. He's holding up everything. We can't get anything done. And they're absolutely right on this. But where are the other members of Congress that should be speaking out, saying, hey, Mike, this is a problem that's removed. Mike, where are the people like Matt Gaetz that did it before that said, we're done with this clown? They got rid of Kevin that way, but then Mike jumped in, and we really haven't heard much, internal frustration there that I can see. And that, to me, is the problem, and I haven't heard Trump say, Johnson, you got to get out of the way, buddy. You're okay. All Johnson said is, we support Donald, we love Donald, Donald's incredible, and then at every turn he's undermined what President Trump has been trying to do, as far as I can see. It's been the worst do-nothing Congress that I've ever seen in my entire life, James, including one of the next top stories. They say, hey, we've had the longest government shutdown this year than we've ever had. Then they go on recess because they don't want to deal with the Epstein files, and then they go on recess because of this, and then it's Christmas and Thanksgiving, and by golly, they're on recess more than my kids are in kindergarten. Well, I don't have any kids in kindergarten, but anyway, you get the point.
When
it's crazy.
Did. Yeah, and again, I doubt Trump lost too much sleep fretting over whether or not he should get congressional approval before any of those strikes on those cigarette boats in the ocean. But nevertheless, all of this is a good point and food for thought. And what else can we do except see where it goes? But I think that the trajectory is pretty well set and the trends are apparent, and you're going to get more of the same in the coming year from that. Trump really did. There has been a lot of good things Trump did. And I just want to draw attention to this because I do think it is the most comprehensive compilation of people on our side that have all in one place the assessment of what has happened this year, good and bad. And of course, when you're assessing what's happened good and bad in the country, it all falls at the feet of the president. So there is that. So you can check that out.
Which I'm going to blatantly say is not fair, and that's why I'm literally pointing at Congress right now. Much of what Trump is doing is right. Much of what Trump is doing is appropriate and needful. It's just that we're not going about it the right way. You cannot violate the checks and balances. And here's why. You might say it's fine to do when it's Trump because we think he's a good guy with great intentions. What happens when that same increased of, quote, POTUS power is in the hands of a Joe Biden or a Barack Hussein or a Hillary Clinton kind of thing? Okay, it's going to be disaster. And so we've got to keep that in mind. We cannot let the presidential or POTUS power get so extreme that Congress is more sidelined after Trump than before. So even though there's great intentions, we got to be careful, James.
Yeah, well, this is where you and I have talked a lot about this and have very collegially disagreed on how late the hour is and what actions have to be taken. at times such as this, as the Bible puts it. I would say very quickly before I get into that, though, is that it has been, a lot of good has come this year. A lot of good things has happened as a result of Trump, but it is almost exclusively through executive orders. I would say one thing, though, Sam, that people are asleep on, and that is this, and this is a very, very good thing. Let me pull it up here, that nobody's really talking about, so let's talk about it in about 30 seconds. And that is the judges that Trump has appointed, all right? I mean, he's filled the 3 Supreme Court seats, 30% of the appeals courts, 28% of the federal bench, and 27% of the federal court seats, all of which will serve for decades. And so that means by doing so, he is stopping a lot of these, Star Wars bar scenes type of people that would have been appointed under a Kamala Harris or a Joe Biden or an Obama or whomever. And that
right,
is good.
And I think that's incredible, and the president deserves tremendous credit for that, and I think it's huge. I will say this, though. Sadly, even with a lot of his people in place, he's been beat up at the courts as much as he's won at the courts in a lot of ways. It's Lawfare nation, and that Lawfare's got to stop. And the only way to stop a lot of that Lawfare is to flat out start impeaching judges that think they're activists from the bench. They don't make the law.
Well,
they don't change the law. They basically interpret. If the law is wrong, they need to go back and say, Congress, this is wrong. Go fix it. They don't need to just adjudicate from the bench and become legislative in their own right. And that's part of the problem. We don't hold them accountable when they do that stuff, right?
Well, see, that's the thing, and that's a whole other can of worms. And I perhaps I shouldn't have chased that rabbit, but it was on my mind. I mean, this is overall a good thing.
Trump does deserve credit, though. You're right about that.
Well, so that's one thing, and he has had a good run at the Supreme Court. All right, in this year, and he's starting to rack up some victories there. But I would just say, most of the stuff has been through executive order. The only thing Congress has passed really has been the big, beautiful bill, and that's a mixed bag. And
$1 trillion for the first time ever on pro-military agenda. The deep state, the military-industrial complex, live and well under the Donald. He said we could do it for half, but he signed double what he said it would take to do. Why? Can't figure that part out. That's what I'm talking about. The deep state, the warmongers are going psychotic, and we're allowing it on our watch, folks. We got to stop it. All right, coming back, more top 10 stories from the nation, from the world, from James, from Sam. We got a lot to cover. Hang tight. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live. All right, ladies and gentlemen, James Edwards, thepoliticalcesspool.org, riding shotgun on the broadcast today. I'm Sam Bushman. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. It is New Year's Eve. We're talking about the look back in 2025 of the different stories going on from a bunch of different perspectives. James Edwards, right before the pause, highlighted a disagreement that me and James have. And I want to go back to that for a second because I think that's a really critical, believe it or not, this relates to one of my top 5 or 6 issues for 2025. That is this. Increased divisions are along every fault line. We're more divided at the end of 25 than we were at the start, big time. Okay, you've got Green and Massey virtually against Donald. It's crazy. Donald's against them. Different people are quitting Congress over Donald. The old guard Republicans hate Trump. I mean, that's just the Republican side. We haven't even talked about men and women and gays and straights, and I can keep going. Well, back in 2015, I wrote an article about this, and now in 2026, I'm going to be launching and continuing with my... It started out as a clarion call for civility. Now it's a campaign for civility. Campaignforcivility.com if you guys want to check that out and get involved in the solutions there. But I bring this up because, hey, me and James disagree on something. Ladies and gentlemen, that's perfectly fine. This is America. And I don't have to hate James, and he doesn't have to hate me, and we can have our own views. This is America. And I don't need to just deplatform James and he hates me and we da-da-da. I mean, it's crazy town. What's wrong with James and Sam not believing exactly the same on something? In fact, I think it's incredibly healthy. And I personally think the discussion and the debate is incredible because it lets you, my fellow Americans, hey, you might agree with James, you might agree with me, that's okay. You might say, I agree kind of with both of you and I disagree with both of you, and here's my view. Wow, imagine the genius of America, James.
Sam, I was thinking we've had this conversation. This has been a recurring conversation that you and I have had on this show, an ongoing debate, I guess you could say. for years, but there's really is no area of disagreement, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. And first of all, let me just say again, as we head into a new year, what an honor to be with you on New Year's Eve, the last day of 2025. I agree with you 100% in principle, and here's one way I would sort of relate to that is, in our cause, this cause of ours, you know, all the different people we work with, Sam, on your show, on my show, the other organizations you work with, the other organizations I work with, you know, everybody in that collective, right? We have disagreements, but I am all for civility and coming together and overcoming that for the greater good. And you can do it in that way with those people because it's a high trust society, you know, community for the most part. Everybody's working in good faith, and even if you have an area of disagreement, you can overlook that because you're all pulling in the same direction, right? Where I disagree with you on this whole thing as it is applied to America writ large in you know, the present time is, you know, your idea and that sort of scenario that I just articulated, you know, coming together in civility, even through disagreements, that might have worked in the America of, say, 1960, even as late as 1960, when we were still a 90% white nation, overwhelmingly Christian. We had a lot of things in common, and even some disagreements. You know, the things that you had in common could have, you know, overcome that. But now we have nothing in common with the people that you mentioned on the other side. I mean, nothing at all, except for the fact that we all just sort of live in this space called the United States. I mean, that is the only thing. And even though we live here together, we're all competing for resources and power, and there is no trust, there is no goodwill, and it is only getting worse. You said we're more divided now than ever before, and that will be true for about another week or another month, and then we'll be even more divided a month from now. That is just the way it's going to go as we become increasingly diverse and multicultural. And this is why I say, I mean, you were saying before, you know, why would the president do things like this? Or, you know, a president rather shouldn't do things like this because if the other side gets in power, they'll use it. And I say, Sam, no matter what Trump does or doesn't do, the left is going to come after us. If they get back into power, they're going to come back with blood, and they're going to, if they don't kill people, if they don't absolutely put people in prison, they're definitely taking away any semblance of the First Amendment. You can mark that down with 100% certainty, and that's why I say this late in the game, America absolutely, you know, urinating away its birthright, urinating away everything that would have made it any sort of recognizable to the country founded by the founding fathers. All that's gone now, and this is why I say you cannot do it the way that we would like to do it. The only way you're going to clean up this mess is if we have somebody like a Franco or a Pinochet. I mean, it's going to take authoritarian cleanup here, because these people are never going to work with you. That's just the sad truth of it.
And the sad part is, I don't disagree with really anything that you say. I agree we're more divided. I agree that, hey, we don't have a lot in common. I agree with everything that you say, except I would say this. God's in his heaven. He knows us. He loves us. If we keep his commandments, he will bless us. And he teaches us, you know, to be kind, to love God first, and to love our neighbors second. Now, others may not do that, and you're pointing to that, and that's right. I think that's a big problem, and it's going to get worse, and I sadly agree. On the other hand, I can't control everybody else. I can only control me. And I can not control, but hopefully have a positive influence on my sphere of influence, if you will. And that's why I say I want to stick with God's commandments, because if I do, that's where blessings come from. And then on a country level, I want to stick with the supreme law as long as I can. At some point, the country might fall apart so bad that there is no law. And in a lawless reality, then, hey, we got to deal with that as a different scenario. But until then, I'm saying, hey, it's the supreme law of the land, and I believe it's the safest way to move forward. I teach to the ideal. And the ideal says, hey, the Constitution is the supreme law of our land and should be the political religion of our nation, if you will. God's laws are the key to a civilized, safe, stable, moral society. Others may not agree with me. Others may spit in the face of those things, but those are the things that I cling to and want to set the example for. So I don't disagree with your point one bit. I don't think you and I disagree at all on the points, as much as I think we might disagree on I might have a little more optimism and hope that we can get there than you do. And I also feel like, hey, I need to set that standard as a political talk show host. I need to be a leader and say, hey, if we've got these problems today, what's the best way that we can move forward in these problems? And it's teach to the ideal and live in the real and work on the real, becoming closer to the ideal every day. And if I die doing that, and then I meet my maker and say, hey, I tried to promote peace and I tried to, then hey, let the cards fall where they may, James.
Well, Sam, again, ideally you are 100% spot on. I think the only disconnect that you and I may have on this isn't the ideal, but rather the theory versus the practice.
Yeah, the real and maybe what we do about it, right?
Well, and of course, as you say, you don't want to, you're going to do that, and if you die trying, and it sort of brought to this image to mind of the missionary that went to the North Sentinel Island. He would have maybe had sort of that sort of mindset. He was going to share the good news and do the things right, and he got killed and eaten, by the people there. So I don't know.
Even Jesus Christ got killed. So I mean, that's the standard. And so if I have to, pick up that cross and carry it along, I shall do so. And I, how the Lord's going to win our battles for us, I don't know. But I know the good side wins, and I know that if I stick to that side, I'm going to be all right. And let everything else fall where it may.
But. Is it against God's will to say, what, this country was founded for a specific people? Every nation. The Bible speaks a lot to the nations. The nations, are distinct, and yes, we should go to all the nations. But is it against God's will to say, what? I hate to do this. We made some mistakes. You all got to go. We're going to have our nation. You have yours.
I don't think that's against God's will. In fact, I think that's the supreme law too. That's why Donald Trump and Holman, in my opinion, one of the biggest successes of Trump is getting rid of many illegals. I sat with Tom Holman in a room the other day at TPUSA, and he explained a lot of the gains they've been making. And I'm telling you, I do nothing but applaud and clap for that, not because I hate anybody, but because I believe in the rule of law. And the Constitution says, hey, you can't be here illegally. You just can't do that. And so I support Tom and company in doing their very best, and I'm working with sheriffs, with the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association around the country. In fact, we're going on the 9th and 10th of January. If you go to cspoa.org, you can find that event happening. It's going to be in Washington, in Tacoma, just outside of Tacoma. And we're going to be meeting with a bunch of sheriffs and defending the office of sheriff in the state of Washington. But primarily, sheriffs are getting sued and beat up and attacked and destroyed by leaders of the state of Washington, the Attorney General of the state of Washington and the governor, and they're basically suing sheriffs for trying to help Tom Holman and President Trump uphold the supreme law of the land. And see, that's where I stand 100% with Trump and Holman on that. That's probably the biggest success Trump has made thus far. We've gotten rid of millions of illegals. And you say, what do you mean, Sam? That's not right. Well, it is right, because what happens is when one illegal leaves, then several follow. Women, children, friends, people, dependents, relatives, and others don't come. Because if their buddy, the guy that was sending them money back from America is coming home, well, they're not coming here. So, see, there's a lot that's happening people don't really know about. And Tom highlighted a lot of that in this room. There was a Q&A portion. I was, 30 feet, 20 feet from him, whatever. All I'm telling you is it was tremendous. And to your point, is it wrong to say, hey, we want the rule of law upheld? Is it wrong to say, hey, there's a Christian nation meant for Christian people? No, I don't think that's wrong one bit. Not at all. Let's talk about it more. James Edwards, Sam Bushman, Liberty Roundtable Live, baby. It doesn't get hotter than this, does it?
Welcome back, everybody. James Edwards bringing you back to the last segment of the first hour of the last show of 2025 here on Liberty Roundtable. And folks, this is that special time of year. We're actually in the midst of the 12 days of Christmas right now. Christmas doesn't end on December the 26th. Really, in some ways, it just begins. But it is a season of hope and goodwill, and the battle will begin anew, beginning tomorrow as we head into 2026. Christmas time, gives us a little chance to pause and reflect and draw nearer to the Lord and celebrate his birth, the birth of Christ. But we have to have faithful watchmen on the parapet, and I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that Sam Bushman is that man, and there is no show like this. LibertyRoundTable.com. He didn't ask me to do this. This is coming from the heart. I just want to say, if you're there on your desktop, you will see a beautiful I mean, an absolutely gorgeous little red tab that says donate. And you really should do that because everybody wants there to be advancement. Everybody wants there to be victories. And if you're one of those people, you really have to support the people who have proven that they can deliver such results. And Sam Bushman, not just through his work on this radio program or through this radio network, but through all of the other vines of his activism, is that man, libertyroundtable.com. And donate today a special year-end gift to keep him going in 26. He's already got big and ambitious plans, and he's doing more all the time. And he's not the only one, by the way. I mean, again, everybody can play a role on this team or in this army, so to speak. And a soldier is only as good as the last drop of water in his canteen. And there are other people out there fighting, too. I can't wait. And, Sam, this was on your notes today. I would just say very quickly, I mean, Steve Stockman, Congressman Stockman, has announced that he is seeking re-election down in Texas.
Yeah,
Be
buddy,
sure to
that's
support
one of
him.
the top stories
And
of
I know there were some
2025.
things.
I said that's one of the top stories of 2025.
Oh,
Amen.
sure. Yeah, I thought like, well, the election's in 20. Actually, the primary's
His
in March. It's
announcing
not
and
that far
deciding to
away.
Run, and the
Yes,
changes in the
yes.
environment to allow him to run is one of the top stories of 2025 on my list.
Absolutely. 100%. And then
going.
another one that I'm going to be looking at with a lot of interest. I mean, that is number one. If you're looking for, a fight in the political arena where you can have immediate results, is that primary, by the way, in Stockman's race in Texas. It's different state to state. But in Texas, their primary is the first Tuesday in March. And that's a new district that's been redrawn to favor Republicans. And so whoever wins that primary is going to go to Washington. You have a chance to send a patriot back to Washington as early as about eight weeks from now. I mean, that's crazy. So do that. And then up in Minnesota, I know Minnesota, there's a lot of stories coming out of Minnesota that's on your list to talk about today, Sam. And I can't wait to see. It looks like your friend, the Pillow Man, who you have worked with and interviewed and have been to events with, Mike Lindell is going to give it a go for governor against Mike
Let's
Waltz.
go.
I mean, that's huge. Now, these are two hellraisers. Steve Stockman, I would say, of all the races out there right now, if you want hellraisers, and you really got to have people like this to go up there and upset the status quo, people say, well, Lindell's been sued. He has this bad reputation. Stockman's a convicted felon. I would say if you're not a convicted felon right now, I don't trust you. if your name isn't smeared by the media and you haven't been put into prison, it's hard for me to trust you in this day and age of lawfare and political partisanship and rancor and polarization. That's why I know I like Lindell and Stockman. I mean, if no other reason, I would say this proves that the real deal.
Amen. And so that is one of the biggest ones, this increased divide under every fault line. Another one that I have is Lawfare. Another one that I have is the incredible announcements of Steve Stockman and Mike Lindell both running for office. I'd love to see more patriots, more good, honest Americans run for office. I know people say, Sam, you should run for office, but I don't think so. I don't think I have the great optics. No offense. I might be a pretty intelligent guy and everything else. I do better on the outside on the radio, helping other people, telling the tale of truth. That's where I need to stay. That's where I believe God's put me and where I believe I'm the most effective. A lot of people don't believe a blind person could govern, even though it's not the truth. But people misunderstand disability.
Massachusetts had a blind governor.
It's truth. Oh, I'm not saying it could never happen. I'm just telling you it's very, very difficult. And then the other problem is you've got to kind of run to the center, and they'll use my 30 years of hard hitting. There's more out on Sam Bushman than probably anybody else in history, almost. Not literally, but very close, because I've got more on the radio. If you took all my radio shows and all my, if the government captured all those, they could transcribe all that, turn an AI bot and use it against me and everything else. And so I'm just telling you to be very tough, but I think my role is to do this, but the divide is critical, and the lawfare is at the center of it, which is too bad. But you bring up another one that I think is really important: betrayal of the media. And this is one that I really think I want to kind of focus on a little bit more for the end of this hour and possibly even the start of the next hour. Donald Trump was like, hey, these medias, people are clowns. These companies are going under because they're failed, they're bogus. We're going to, the new media is here. Then they put up this incredible thing named after the new media taking center stage. They called it, whitehouse.gov/new media. We all signed up for it. We were all excited. Not a single person that I know has heard a word back. Every time these big wigs at government and all the congressmen and senators and celebrities all go to the mainstream betrayal media over and over. They won't book anything with us, but yet they go to the betrayal media day after day after day, and then they complain if they don't get treated right over and over. Nothing changes. If they raise money, they spend it on the big media, and if Donald Trump would just simply dismiss all the clown media and start going to true media sources and have real discussions, real on it, they would sink in reality and in society, and we would gain tremendous ground. Okay, but none of that ever happens. And so to me, the biggest fail story of 2025 is, hey, the mainstream media has been promoted, and the new media taking center stage that was really the reason Trump won. I mean, look, Eric Trump came on my show. Donald Trump Jr. came on my show for the first go-round on Super Tuesday, mind you, and Trump got elected, okay? But then Trump hasn't really courted any of us ever since. And so the betrayal of the media is one of my top 10 realities of 2025. I mean, when was the last time new media taking center stage, great guys got awesome guests? I mean, Kash Patel should be on my show. President Trump should be on my show. J.D. Vance should be on my show. Pam Bondi should be on my show. Tom Holman should be on my, I can keep going. The education department should be, we should be talking about all these things, but none of it's happening. Zero. Absolutely zero. And so this idea, these words mean things. And they told you, hey, the mainstream press is bogus. Well, then prove it. Why would you go on there? Why would Green go on the mainstream press? Why would everybody be just running to go to Fox and interview? Jimmy Kimmel gets more interviews than I get. And this guy's a clown that Donald Trump says should just go away as a failure. Until you go on his show, then it makes it a success. I mean, it's crazy town, James.
This is a very interesting topic of conversation, because there's very good and some not so good that are attendant to it. And the very good is that at once, Trump, especially in his 2015 and 2016 campaign, the first run against Hillary, Trump did more that year to effectively neuter and defang and take the venom out of these libelous attack words and slurs like racist, white supremacist, neo-Nazi, so on and so forth. Trump, more than any other man that has ever lived, basically just laid bare these things, and the public got it. They're saying it because they disagree with him. They're saying it because they hate him. They're saying it because they think that this is what it's going to take to, and it had always been effective prior to that. This is what will make it to where he can't win. And he just never flinched. He never apologized. He just kept going and mocked them. And to his eternal credit, that may be the best contribution Trump has ever given this country. I think Trump was the one.
1,000%. But then what about carrying it to the next level? Which
is,
hey,
that's it.
I'm gonna do my best to promote the new media, folks. I'm gonna not go on these clown media if there's enemy press as he claims they are. Why would you spend any time with them, James? At all?
Okay, so that's the other thing. So that is on the one hand, that is the very good, and then the very maddening is Trump had a chance. Certainly the first term, and then here again now, why is he letting any of the so-called mainstream, the legacy media, the lying press, why is he letting any of them into the White House briefing room? Yes, he has sprinkled in a few MAGA tier media outlets in there, but it's not really the people that are out there doing the really hard-hitting stuff. It's basically sycophants, and they are better than the controlled press and the controlled media, and they are in there now. But it should be no CBS, no CNN, no MSNBC. None of these people, they don't even get to go in at all, and it's just all alternative media. And the new media taking center stage. But, ultimately, it really doesn't matter, Sam, because you've got now, nobody is tuned in. And as the older folks in our country continue to be gathered unto their fathers, and the people in their teens and 20s continue to mature, nobody is getting their news from those establishment sources anymore. It's almost all on social media now, and that's only going to increase as the people who used to tune into Fox to get their daily bread, the Fox News demographics, like people in their 70s and 80s, as those continue to to, die out, as we all will one day, none of it really is going to matter because everybody's on Twitter. Tucker Carlson's getting more people on Twitter than he did on Fox. So, and he was the number one cable news host in the world.
You got that right, and that is good news. And I went to the TPUSA conference, all the younger generation. There was 31,000 people there. I was one of them. But all I'm telling you is they star-studded that thing with mainstream people, in my opinion. We'll talk about this and more as we continue. You're watching and listening to the one and only hard-hitting New Year's Eve edition of Liberty Roundtable Live, ladies and gentlemen, syndicated by Loving Liberty Networks, lovingliberty.net, James Edwards' website, thepoliticalcesspool.org. God save the Republic of the United States of America.